Okay, hi everybody, and welcome. I forget what number this is, but somewhere, early on in our study of being, and it will be when you receive this, it will have the proper proper number on it. We're still very much in the flow of the Scorpio full moon. I hope some of you were able to pick up Tuya's broadcast, which was the exact moment of the full moon. It was very, very powerful, one of the most powerful that has been given in the temple recently. So if you have a chance, since we still do have 2 or 3 more days in this direct flow for application of what we may have been impressed with, go to, well, I suppose it probably should be on YouTube. At the same time, BL will be putting it up on Makara, www.makara.us, and it's really worth getting involved with. Scorpio, is such a sign related to humanity, to the development of humanity, and all that the human monad has to overcome on this particular planet, given, excuse me, the kind of resistance that we have here. We're kind of, as I said before, kind of like the hospital of our solar system, and we have managed to import so much of the unredeemed substance of the first major solar system, which emphasized matter and the mind, and quite a bit of the moon chain material too, because there was a disaster there on the moon chain through the premature compassion of our planetary logos, and it had to be stopped, and the solar logos we hear stopped it, and then the move was made of those incompletely developed entities to the Earth chain, so and very much to our globe at the moment, and so we have a lot of catching up to do as the moon chain agenda is finished, completed on our globe and in our chain, and the Earth chain agenda is pursued. If I can, just kind of show this to you, you've seen it before, but just to remind you, this is a picture of the Earth scheme, and the moon chain is gone. It's been replaced by something called the Saturn chain. But anyway, when this was the moon chain, and who knows what geometry it was at the time, there was an interruption which was engineered by the solar logos because it couldn't be allowed to continue as it was, and then the living undeveloped forms were moved to the Earth chain where they are now, and there's even elements of humanity, maybe many disciples who were undertaking their development on the moon chain and had to be moved to the Earth chain to complete. The Buddha was one such, the last highest of developed humanity at the time, and he was moved along with many others during the Atlantean root race in the third sub-race of the Atlantean root race. And that fits very well too, because we were dealing with the third chain at the time. The moon chain was the third. So, there's lots going on in the world of relativity. And we have to learn quite a bit if we are to be successful occultists, on the right-hand path, and to understand the reasons behind the effects which we observe. This is an amazing little diagram here. There's so much in it. If we would learn how to interpret it, the different sizes of the globes and the different lines connecting different globes with each other and different chains with each other and different chains with different schemes and so forth. It's all a very intricate thing. I think the Solar Logos knows what it's doing, and it'll be quite a while before we can fathom that. But I guess the thing that I'm hoping from this series of presentations is that we realize that whatever we are, we have a permanent place in this universe, or in the realm of being, forever. You cannot be extinguished. You cannot be eradicated. You cannot be snuffed out. But then, what are you anyway? And what am I? If we seem to be different, that's simply an illusion. And if it can be brought home to our consciousness that I am as much you as I am me, to use ordinary speech in trying to describe that, then, and it seems very strange, because I am I and you are you and so forth. But if it can be understood that I am as much you as I am myself, apparently, and the same for you and any other you or I, then we're really making some progress in a realm of understanding which can escape one entirely in one's esoteric studies. In other words, we could simply remain in the realm of the mind and not have the intuition triggered at all, or the identificatory, what a word, huh? The identificatory capabilities that the Christ demonstrated so strongly. We could just, study for years and stay only in the realm of the mind. Now, as they say, the mind is a good servant but a poor master, and we have to have that mind and develop it keenly. You can only imagine that the mind of the planetary logos, of the solar logos, is absolutely a supermind when compared to what we have. Nevertheless, it's not the utmost of that which they are capable of, nor is it for us. I just want to welcome you here. I want to say, the brave ones keep coming back because, in a way, we're headed out here upon uncharted waters. There's no totally reliable map for where we're going, and we're looking for the dawning of realization. If you want to, every one of these little subplane levels has a particular power connected with it. And if you really want to understand about realization, it comes in on the 5th level here of the atomic, of the atomic plane. If I were to go hunting, there's a chart here that Keith Bailey put together at some point, and he did a service thereby, and you'll see that realization is way, way up here. It doesn't take us any higher than the 3rd level of the Buddhic plane and of the atomic plane, and certainly it doesn't take us onto the monadic plane, because there are powers to be found there that just are not within the range even of a master yet. So there's plenty of evolution to be accomplished right here on the cosmic physical plane. And if we're in a rush, well, there's no such thing as a rush. Now, maybe in all my life, maybe I've learned that somehow. Being an Aries type, they're always in a rush. But in fact, it's utterly futile when time is forever or duration is forever and always has been, and when time, in a way, doesn't even exist. We'll get into that when we start studying the point, the true point. You've been it. You have been it forever. And no matter how far back you go in a linear thought, it can be 1,000, 100,000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000,000, a billion, a quadrillion, a sextillion, just keep going back, large numbers. And it was always preceded. Whatever definite universe it is, you cannot ever give a universe a number because there was no beginning point. And you need a beginning point if you're going to number anything. So, we can't say this is the umpteenth universe. We just can't say that. It's always, in a way, a term in the middle of infinitude. And if it seems like far-fetched stuff, okay, it is in a way. But from another point of view, it gives you the assurance of being forever. And I think that's an important thing when you're trying to live your life in limitation and in form. Because, somehow in the Atlantean period, the fear of death was inculcated in the mind of the human being, and they lost contact with the inner planes, which would have proven that was a phantasmagorical fear, nothing real at all. But we're getting back to the point where in a few centuries and maybe less, the survival state of the inner consciousness will be proven, and the ongoingness of our beingness, can I put it that way? The ongoingness of our beingness will be proven, and then we'll discover that whatever we think we know is just absolutely minuscule compared to what we are. Well, I'm speaking in these terms. If I were giving a lecture on glamour or psychology or Friday, I guess it's going to be cosmic fire again, it'd be completely different. It'd be all about the relative world and the things that are established in the universe. But now what we're trying to do here is to look at the universe in an entirely different way. It's not scientific exactly. It's more philosophical occult, philosophical esoteric view of the universe. Well, okay, 30 brave people plus Joe and myself here, and probably I'll get to you over there at some point here. Yeah, well, she'll be coming along. So hi, I want to welcome you, Anna, and Anne, and Annette, and Antoinette, and Brennan, Catherine, Damien, and Diana, and Francois, and Frederick, Heike, and Helen, and Ishtar, and it looks like Joe is over here twice. Okay, well, hi, Joe. Your doppelganger is over here. All right. And Joan, and Joe Healy, and Karen, and Kim, Loretta, Martha, Mary Bell, Myrna, Risto, Raz, Stephen, Suzanne, Tia, Tu, Vera, and Veronica. Welcome to whatever we're going to do tonight. I've got some plans to ask you some questions, and but I guess the first thing I want to know is, this whole field is nothing but a big question. If you really stop to think about it, I mean, there's a let's see, how does it go? Well, it's a quote by Shelley, the poet Shelley, which I'm something like life, like a dome of many-colored glass, stains the white radiance of eternity. So colors really avail, qualities avail, and we're going to have to get together and think about the difference. I've got some questions for you, but first, do you have anything you'd like to say before we start, or any questions that you have on this voyage over the ocean of theosophy? Anybody have anything you want to bring forward before we begin my questions or statements? It's a bit hard to take the plunge. Sometimes when you go up north of the Arctic Circle, as Tuya and I sometimes do, the water of these frozen lakes stays cold a very long time. So even in June, the ice is just kind of breaking, and the Finnish people are of such a type that they love to jump in the frigid water if there's a good ice hole there, and well, believe me, they get out quickly, but it's quite a shock. And of course, no, I'll answer your question right away. I have not done that. Okay. But I have seen a lot of people do it, and there's a novel by Hermann Hesse, a German novelist, really into spiritual things, and it was all about the mystery schools of the future, and was called Magister Ludi. And I guess I would have to read it again now, 40 years later. And the head of the mystery school ended his days by jumping into just such a frigid lake of water. Maybe I'm just being a little bit cautious. Okay, now let's see.
Michael?
Yes, I see a question mark here.
It's Kim, and it's a good time to mention that the handout, the newest handout, I did send to the group registered to their email address as an attachment. And then Kim would like to know, because it's her first Identify as Being webinar, if you could explain the handout.
Gosh, I'm not even looking at it, and I don't know what I'm looking at, Joe. What should I be looking at?
You should be looking at your handout that you sent, version 5 that I sent out to the group.
Okay. Oh, now I've got it. Okay, yeah. I've just sent out some links, and version 5, I'm doing all of this additively. Basically what I'm doing, is I've got 10,000, 11,000 seed thoughts that I've been generating over the years, and I keep on sort of explaining them in the column next to the seed thought. So as the numbers go up, moving from version 5 to version 4, from version 4 to version 5, what you see there is a document with a bit more explanation than version 4 had. And, as I go along, I will fill in where for this sort of e-book, electronic book, that's going to appear, and constantly be updated. I will fill in what I think needs further explanation. So everything you see basically in the left-hand column, let's see if I can, wow, where am I? That's a good question. Where am I? Who am I? Like this. Everything you see in this column is basically a seed thought. And as we go along, occasionally there's some blue marks or red marks on the column to the right. And there I'm doing a little bit of explanation. Now, some of these seed thoughts, they're simply for pondering, Kim. I don't know, I couldn't possibly take up everything all at once. We'd be here till the year 2050. My son reminded me the other night after Cosmic Fire that if we kept going at the examine every grain of sand rate we were going, it would take another 25 years minimum for us to make some progress in the book. But basically, I agree with him, but the foundation in the Cosmic Fire book is what we are laying, and then it will speed along. In one book, the Tibetan has written many books. And how do you discover those books? Basically, by cross-referencing a lot of different things, and whole new layers of revelation appear. So I think it'll become easier for us as we move along. If I have patience, if you have patience, I guess maybe Cosmic Fire is one of my very favorite books. Not that I think I can plumb the depths of everything that is said there. I don't think I can. But I can offer some understanding, which may be of use to you and to everybody. I hope so. Now, by the way, further in this chat box, tomorrow morning, the Science of Triangles, and, when they are webinars, as the Science of Triangles is, starting at 6 a.m., I shouldn't have said that, should I? It's really 6 a.m., the Science of Triangles, not 6 p.m. No. And that's GMT, so always, GMT never changes, so wherever you live, if you don't move around too much, then it's going to be one time or another time if you have, for instance, summertime and standard time. It'll always be that far from GMT, and it should not be that difficult. So anyway, 6 a.m. Science of Triangles, and there is your webinar ID if you want to join that. It's got a lot of astrology in it, but I do think that since the Tibetan is such an expert astrologer and rheologist, that we ought to take advantage of his expertise and learn something about these sciences for which he is responsible. Okay. All right, now let's go back here. I think there were some other things. Just wanting to understand, no, the numbering of the columns is nothing particularly. It just shows you when I want to move from seed thought to seed thought, I'm able to do it quickly. If I want to jump 150 seed thoughts, I can do that quickly if I know the number of where I want to go, okay? So I will make that more and more usable as we go along. Right now, we're just getting into the substance of this way of thinking. And no, you don't have to fill anything in, although if you want me to think in those terms, like a test for the group, I certainly can. Okay, and there you go. All right. So that is an incomplete document. That's just a document to show you what some of the seed thoughts are and some of my commentary. And basically, I have documents like that for almost every one of the subjects that we are taking up. And as you know, this gives you an idea of those subjects which I reviewed with you last time a little bit. Now, there may be more subjects, but all of these subjects are going to have their own seed thoughts. So, if you really want to understand what this is all about, you're in it for the long term, and I have to be patient, you have to be patient, and we will move along and gather slowly a sensitivity to this way of, if we can call it thinking, yes, but maybe it's more than thinking, this way of perceiving or infusing. Okay. Thank you to Kim for your clarifying questions. Are there any others? And after the questions, I will go to the questions I'd like to ask you. So I'm just checking this out here. If there's any other questions. Just a little anecdote. I once had an esoteric bookstore. I called it the question shop. The question shop. I guess the question for most people is, what is this? So we had esoteric books and astrological readings and all that kind of thing. And I noticed, study the asteroids, because although it may be difficult to know how the asteroids really work and how the fragmentation, let's say, of some planet which once existed can come up with all these different qualities, it seems to be the case. And so I discovered when I did an analysis, extensive analysis of asteroids in relation to my own chart. Now, of course, there's thousands of them, so you can't go too far. But I noticed that the asteroid called Sphinx was exactly on my midheaven. And Sphinx, the old Egyptian idea there is that whoever passed by the Sphinx would be asked a question. And if the question was not properly answered, the Sphinx would attack the passerby, and that was it for the passerby. But so there's a tendency under this particular asteroid to ask questions that cannot be answered or that are difficult to answer. So I thought, well, that's really appropriate, given the bookstore I was running and the name of it and so forth, and really the way I've lived my life, and even the kinds of questions we're getting into in examining some of this beyond the universe type of thought. I call it supra-universal, above the universe type of thought. So, some things are fated, and you just make do with the energies which impress you at a certain time, namely the time when you are born. It's such a complex interweaving of energies in which we are immersed, and at the same time, the whole thing is just utterly simple, and we have to get used to that paradox, because both are true, and they seem to contradict each other, and yet both are true. Okay, now, so let's see what I had in mind for you today. And I always wonder, what I should do, because I don't want to get too complex, and I don't want to avoid the complexity of things either. So here are some questions. And I wonder, can you answer them, or at least give your impression regarding the question? So the first question is, can I distinguish quality from being? Can we distinguish between quality and being? I've been hinting at this quite a bit over the last few weeks, but I just thought we might just have a little discussion on this. Obviously, if we have a lengthy discussion, we're not going to get done for weeks. But can you distinguish between quality and being? Would anybody like to take a stab at that? Because, one is of the universe, and the other is of pure reality. So, when we study Master DK, he sets out 3 words: life, quality, and appearance. LQA, life, quality, and appearance. And life is a lot closer to being. Quality is what it is. It's of the soul. And, it's important because in our soul studies, and we're doing a lot of those soul studies, we have to know what quality is, and we have to be able to compare it to being. Anybody want to take a thought about that? Now, I know some of these are a little bit like philosophical questions, but remember that the word philosophy simply means the love of wisdom. Philos, love, and Sophia, wisdom, the love of wisdom, philosophia. And I would say that, we as students of Master DK, we do want to have as an animating something burning in our heart the love of wisdom. Okay. So you can, if you want to write something, write it, or, this is it's not exactly like a test. It's just like, what do you think? What do you think? I see that the picture that I'm using here is a little bit jerky, and it's probably, aha, now I get it. Oh, goodness. There's something going on here. That was it. I wasn't sufficiently plugged in. I'm glad I saw that. I would have run out and the whole webinar would have been over. Okay, well, now I'm plugged in, and maybe things will work a little bit better and in a less jerky manner. So let me get us started. Quality is always based upon number. And it exists in the realm of number and in the realm of division. And so it exists in a universe. And when you look at the qualities of any being, it is the natural divisions that you will find in this being. Let's suppose we're looking at white light. There's a whole range of qualities there, and they're known as the different colors. Now, probably you can differentiate color in terms of quality very minutely, but usually we say, okay, what we have here is red, orange, yellow, green, blue. I'm going in kind of ray order. Indigo blue, violet, infrared. then we're back to red again, you know. These are the natural divisions of white light, and they are produced by the great perceiver, who is the deity. It's the same thing with the octave of music. Every note, and there are ways of dividing notes according to a sevenfold, eightfold measure, or according to a 28-fold measure, or according to a 12-fold measure. You can divide the space in an octave. Bum, 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 bum. That's an octave, more or less. And you can divide that space with all different vibratory sounds. Each one of them is a quality. What about the natural divisions of a human being? Well, we come up with the 7 principles, and there are different ways of looking at these principles. Turn to page 260, roughly, 259, 260, in your Cosmic Fire book, and you're going to see a lot of different ways of looking at the principles of man. But, in general, it's Atma, Buddhi, Manas, Karana Sarira, the causal body, and the kind of consciousness that's found there. Lower mind, the astral kamic nature, the etheric nature, and prana. These are principles, natural divisions. So let's just look at quality as natural divisions of a certain vibratory expression, because qualities are usually ranked hierarchically in our solar system, okay, and really in the universe as a whole. So we say something's of higher quality generally when that something, that division, is of a higher vibration. But when we talk about being, there's no division, there's no vibration, there's no distinction, there's no number. You can understand why Master DK would want us first to deal with the hierarchy found in the universe between good and bad and up and down and what is low and what is high. All those things we study first. And we try to live a life which has higher and higher vibration, higher and higher quality, so our expression is more refined. We try to live a life of refined quality. Being, you cannot refine. It is exactly what it is forever. There's no gradations in it. All there is gradations of perception of it by those who have come forth from it. Now, you're a little emanation, and so am I, and every once in a while we get this sense of being, and I say a planetary logos has a greater sense of it, and the solar logos a greater sense of it, but being itself does not change. You're dealing with the simplest of all things, being. Now I'm going to look at the chart here because I can see there's some statements here. Quality is the subnote tone color of a major note tone or color. It's a good way of putting it, Joe, which is, and for some reason it doesn't continue, so maybe you want to tell me, you want to say what the continuation of the sentence is. Joe, are you there? Okay, wait a second. Yeah, you can speak wherever you want to. And you've said quality is a subnote. Sub is a good idea because it's a division. It's a part of a whole. A subnote tone or color of a major note tone or color, which is, and then my screen just goes blank. I don't know what else you've said. Do you want to say something there? clarification. Okay, quality is the subtone, subcolor of an all note, all tone, all color, which is being. Okay, now, okay, Joe. Okay, now I got it. And I just want to say, and this is paradoxical as well, that when you have being is the root of every quality. But within being, if you can use a word like within, in and out, and all that kind of thing, which probably you can't really do, there are no tones, notes, qualities, differentiations as being or within being. When something comes forth from being, like I'm thinking about that coming forth, the absolute infinity, when that comes forth, then we have the possibility of the containment of every quality that exists. But being itself is so the sameness, so homogeneous, that it cannot be said to be divided in any way. Now that's a subtle point, and it's a paradoxical point. But I appreciate the thrust of your statement here. When you look at wait a second, I'm going to get back here to something that's from the Alice Bailey CD-ROM, right in here somewhere. There we go. When you look at this and how 7 come out of 1, and there would be 7s coming out of each one of these ones, they are all going to be of differentiable quality when compared with the wholeness of that from which they came. Now, we don't have room to draw it here, but a septonate would arise from each one of these higher 7s. And that would be the greater whole, and the qualities emerging would be aspects of that whole. Now, basically, we're all dealing with quality right now. We've got to, let's just say the mind, the astral nature and its vibration, the etheric nature and its vibration and its atomic nature. All of these are qualities contained within a superior wholeness. Probably that superior wholeness is the monad itself. But when you look at the monad and its vehicle, that it represents a certain quality of something still higher, a first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh ray monad. And the thing above it would contain all those and yet be differentiable into yet another quality. Well, all of this is based on division. Reality, being, is the realm of no number. Now that's what Blavatsky says. You have no number and you have number. You never have quality without number. Now, what I've begun to think is that quantity is quality. In other words, the rate of vibration of any atoms within any particular whole determines an overall distinction, which we call quality. And the higher the vibration, the higher the quality. So right away, we're in the realm of division. And division is fascinating, and we have to deal with it. But in a class like this, if we can call it a class, the main thing is the simplification. That's the main thing. We could deal endlessly with such complexity that as a human being we could never touch it. And probably there's no being in all of cosmos that could touch or deal with the absolute infinitude of the absolute deity once above the universe. When I say above the universe, I simply mean beyond that particular self-perception which we identify as a universe. God has a limited, the absolute deity, God, whatever, has a limited, chosen self-perception that it sends forth into isolation and boundedness, and we call it a universe. And it's been going on forever, see, basically. So our question here, how do you distinguish quality and being? It's like, how do you distinguish number from no number? How do you distinguish division from indivisibility? How do you distinguish parts, inherent parts, from the seamless wholeness? Now we could go on and on with that, Obviously, a good essay could be written about that. But we, crazy people here, are searching not for quality. No, in other classes, we search for quality. That's where we search for quality. In other cosmic fire class, our pursuit is going to be quality. Esoteric psychology, the rays and the initiations, however many books I get to talk to you about, we're going to be searching for quality. And we're going to be searching for the geometric arrangement of qualities, because God, let's say the God of our universe, geometrizes. And when you look at Leadbeater's book with Annie Besant, and it's called Occult Chemistry, what they've done is to geometrize all of the elements. Now, sometimes you get some advanced scientist hinting at this geometry, but it's not really put out there boldly yet. These are highly perceptive people with the serpent at the forehead. You've sometimes seen it, It's like a cobra. It rises out of the forehead, and it looks into things. And they have found geometry. And they have found the different figures and designs, and all of those represent a quality. Let's just say the quality of a triangle is different from the quality of a square or the quality of a 5-pointed star, 6-pointed star, etc., etc. So in a way, enumeration and the layout in space, even though space is an illusion, but the layout in our perception of space, those are things that contribute to the determination of what quality is. And like you say, it's always you almost might say that every quality is a sub-quality, really, because being is that from which they all arose. Okay, any thoughts or questions on this before we go on to the next? Let's see what I got here, Suzanne. Let's see what we got here. Go to the question pane. The word be itself has a numerical value, yes, in our alphabet, of 7, and being has the value of 1. So in a way, it seems to, numerologically contain the range if we use the 7-fold numerology instead of the 9-fold numerology. I mean, I'm sure, the occult numerologist, which is what DK wants us to become, could get into a lot of these important words and reveal something about their nature from the numerological perspective. perhaps being sent forth be as a excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm just going to have a sip of tea here. Hold on. I'll be right back. I think your question really got me. Okay, too many thoughts, goes to the lungs. But anyway, beingness is the word that Blavatsky uses in order to distinguish it from any being. So, we'd have to say, see, there's a distinguishment between the ground of all being and the beings, the existences, the existences, they're exiled from absolute infinity temporarily. They go forth into isolation. There's a difference between that root of beingness and the beings which emerge from it. And we just have to make sure we distinguish, because all beings are kind of limited. They are existences. They have some kind of limitation. Beingness itself, or depending on how we want to use the word being, is unlimited, absolutely homogeneous, absolutely seamless, no boundaries within it, containing it, the boundless, immutable principle. And then the old Vedantists, they would say, and thou art that. Thou art that, okay. And then, what good does it do to be that? Well, I would say it gives an assurance about being in life. It gives a kind of, modern humanity has so many anxieties and so many fears and so much ignorance, but somehow this old Brahmic Vedantic way of thinking gives me an ineradicable place forever, both in universe and out of universe, in the realm of absoluteness, the realm of being. So look, a lot of it, Suzanne, depends on how we want to use words, and what a word means to you or to me. And, I play around with certain words, and I try to find something that evokes that sort of one and only utterness, utterly. You just can't change it forever. And Heraclitus, when he's talking about nothing is constant but change, he's talking about an in-universe situation or something that, unless, of course, he means the great breath. So, these old Greek philosophers, they had something going, but it depends on what they're looking at. Nothing is constant but the great breath. In a way, it's the great clock, but is it even occurring? See, if we get deep enough into this, it's like beingness is it forever. Okay, anyway, yes, beingness is kind of a one, but they can also call it absolute zero, because usually with ones, we tend to bound them. We tend to create a ring past knot, We tend to number them. So what really is absolute zero? I'm not talking about temperature, obviously, and I'm not talking about nothing. I'm talking about a case of utter formlessness, which is the derivation of all apparent limitation. An utter formlessness. Yeah, so that's it. Yes, and Joe, I think, yeah, okay. Absolute zero is all without being an articulated all. See, an articulated all is like absolute infinity. You divide it up into all the possibilities, and it just never ends, and it's just, when you start thinking about absolute infinity, drive you quite mad. But when you think about, because it's, in a way, it is an absolute zero. Per se, it has no form in it and no division in it. And that's what we want to kind of, infuse some reflection of that. We want to do that because that's going to take us into another world, which is a necessary parallel world to the world of parts and pieces. You know what I mean? We just divide everything up, and it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller without ever becoming nothing, And, there's just no way for the human mind or any mind in universe to come to real terms with absolute infinity. But maybe the great super universal God or deity reflecting itself can somehow be absolute infinity without binding absolute infinity and making of it a one. So sometime we should discuss the oneness and the zeroness. We almost get into computer language there. It's all zeros and ones, can there be a zero? Or by thinking about it, do we make it a one? That's a big question, and Blavatsky says this reality is beyond any thought or imagination, etc., of man, and I contend beyond the thought of any being in cosmos, including the great ones. So it's just an isness, like you're saying here, Joe. Zero is, but it's got to be the big zero. It can't be a nothing zero, because the no thing is not nothing. We could ponder on that, You cannot annihilate anything. All things are because of a great self-observation that is going on within the absolute deity. Now, obviously we're using a different approach here than we use for the meticulous entirety of studying cosmic fire, or the rays and initiations, or the meticulous entirety, that's the word, of the second ray. We're using a different approach, okay? And then at other times, we'll use meticulous entirety. It's as I've been trying to point out, it's a dual curriculum. And I think, the really important thing here is to realize that if you strip away everything you think you are, you look in the mirror, there's a form, you feel something, it's a form, you think something, it's a form. You strip all that away, and at the root of it, eventually, if we could go deep enough, is pure being or beingness or utterness or whatever inadequate word we want to use. Now, not too many of us are going around during the day and we're thinking of ourselves, I would say often, in very human terms. This is what I am. I've taken this initiation, not that initiation. I have to work here. This is my profession. This is my house. These are my relationships, blah, blah, blah. We think of ourselves in human terms. But you begin to wonder if you can infusive, could you think of yourself as the self? All caps, all capitals. Could you get into the Vedanta, coming from the Vedas, and say, thou art that, with them, with those ancient authors, and could it be meaningful to you? That doesn't mean you would be excused from doing what emanations have to do. They have a job in relativity. Every emanation has a job, a task in relativity. Yes, in the universe, But if you strip everything away, can you find the thing that, language is hopeless here? Can you find what makes you identical with everyone else, with everything else? It's a special state of consciousness. And it's only, it's a bit superficial at first. It's something. All right, okay. So let's keep going here. And zero is, being is accumulative, quality is divisional. Okay, well, let's just say the perception of being is accumulative. Being is what it is, but our perceptions, being limited existences in the realm of illusion and Maya, we have an accumulated acuity, sharpness in the perception of being. We have continuous or discontinuous infuception or, perception of being. So nothing is being added to being because it's the ultimate. Nothing is being subtracted from being because it's the ultimate. You come along with the arithmetical operations. I'm going to multiply, I'm going to divide, I'm going to add, I'm going to subtract. None of that can apply to being, but it can apply to states within the universe. So quality is indeed dependent upon authentic, pre-designed archetypes, which are divisions. An archetype has all these relationships in it, and then down here in we call it the mosaic world, the lower worlds, we've got to replicate the archetype, okay? Got to replicate that. But as far as the accumulativeness of being, it's the accumulative accuracy or sensitivity with which we perceive being. That's what's accumulative. Being itself never changes. Now that's really, an important thing to, at least this is how I see it. I only share with you how I see it at this time. Being just...
Karen has raised her hand.
Yeah, I'll get to all that, Joe. Yeah, it looks like there's some different things going on here. Okay, but I just want that to be understood. You cannot apply any arithmetical operation to being, but you can within absolute infinity or within the realm of division and the realm of quality. Okay, there's a lot more to be looked at here. Wow, okay. And I'm going to come back to it. So that's Karen. And then I'll come back to the written stuff. Karen, please go ahead.
Yes, Michael. I find this approach that you're using in this class as differentiated from, most of our other studies of meticulous entirety to be extremely freeing and healing. And I feel like, I'm very much a beginner, but just the practice of sameness is a worthy exercise. And it's really shifted my awareness, and I really like it because there is the simplicity aspect that's very healing, I think.
Yes, Karen, it certainly can be, and you have to kind of wonder why some people feel obliged to get into it, because there's just so much to learn in the relative way that you could just go on life after life learning relatively.
Well, I like that too.
That's good too. All the relationships.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what we're dealing with is, I just got to say, it's sort of non-relational being. Now, somewhere in the poem, Blavatsky talks about absoluteness being out of all relation with anything. Any relation is an imagined relation because the absoluteness is all those things. So there's got to be something else if you're going to have a relationship. Relationship requires two, and of course the Christ energy is different. Wherever two or more are gathered in my name, there am I, So that's absolutely essential in the field of love, which we have to somehow learn before we can really come to the Father, At the same time, these are some kind of non-relational studies. And what we're trying to do is enter the perception of non-relation, which is utter oneness or maybe utter zeroness, depend on how we're going to look at those ones and zeros, I'm not sure there's a way to be dogmatic about that. Let's just say the secret doctrine starts it off. There is a boundless, immutable principle. Now, when you have boundlessness, do you really have a one? That's the question. Now, your thought comes along and says, oh, there it is. Your thought grabs it and makes a one out of it. But do we really have a one when there's no boundaries? Or do we have this absolute zero thing that we've been talking about here with Joe? So anyway, yes, hopefully it has a good psychological effect on us. And hopefully we feel a new confidence in our limited life, and that we, as it says in the mantra, I still persist. Everything is swept away, nothing left, and I still persist. And being still persists. Okay, now let's look at a couple of other things.
Thank you.
You bet, Karen. Now, let's see. There's things written. Every infinitesimal point of vibration is a point of self-perception. Yes, that's correct. So yes, one point or all points is self-perception. There's only there's only one non-self-perceivable, because within otherness, if I can use that word, something else would have to arise to perceive that from which it arose, the otherness, and that's not allowed in the utter sameness and homogeneity, fancy word, but the utter seamlessness, the utter sameness. You can't have anything in pure being arise, because then it'd be something else, and it's not allowed. So the great mystery is, how does the deity, the super universal deity, come forth and self-observe, revealing its sort of zeroness and revealing at the same time its absolute infinitude? I'm kind of working on that, and it's really a big question. But every point, everything is a point. You collapse it. Everything is a self-perception, and all points are self-perceptions. When we're talking about, the deity, we're talking about now the universal God. The universal God, we're right here in the universe. It perceives itself, and a thing, a number, something, arises out of that self-perception, and then from that self-perception, the thing that arises eventually can be collapsed into a true dimensionless point. And finally, all things in universe can be collapsed into a single point. And that point is what is reabsorbed into absolute infinitude. Okay, well, I'm going to have to be still more specific and still more careful in what I say about that when I try to write it out, okay? Yes, it's done by an adjustment of one's vibration. Now let's just see what we're talking about here. We are not we are. We are the absolute, we are the universal God. We are that. Right here in the universe, like forever, we are that. Cyclically forever. And who's to say how this process of perceiving number within oneself really operates? Because it's all a numerical process. Now, I want to say something here. Emanation is a numerical process. And at the top of the universe, which is a funny thing to say, the numbers are very simple. The great integer gods, 1 through 9. And at the bottom of the universe, where the deity says, enough, I'm a finite being, enough, the numbers are very, very complex. So what kind of vibration does the universal deity have? That's a good question. And what is the method of self-observation of the supra-universal God? And he finally settles on an archetype and sends that archetype out into existence, to be without, existence. He sends that chosen archetype out there, and the archetype is an extension of the great deity, and that archetype gets to work and generates the whole cosmic drama, everyone different from every other one. So you say it's like turning a knob in such a way that changes one's vibratory sound. Well, see, we have to talk about where the vibration comes in, because vibration enters with number. There is no vibration without number. So in a way, the greatest being, the utter, whatever we're going to call it, absolute, there's no vibration there. There's no movement, no vibration. There's only utter beingness. But within the absolute deity is sort of the middle place between absoluteness and a universe. There is vibration. And then vibration is chosen as an archetype. This is the combination, says the God. This is the combination I'm going to use for this universe, and it sends it out. It sends that combination out under its own supervision, because that great God limits itself in a universe. And then, so this question of vibration and number is really a big one. Now, sometimes you read Blavatsky and you just think that everything's moving and that there's vibration everywhere, but I don't agree with that. And I think that Parmenides, among the pre-Greek, pre-Platonic philosophers, even maybe pre-Pythagorean, opted for motionlessness. Now, how can motion come out of motionlessness? That is going to be the big question. That is the biggest of all the mysteries to me. So anyway, we have to be very careful with our words, but to study the point is very important. To study the point. Because every one of us is, and the whole universe is, just a dimensionless point, which is reabsorbed into the absolute infinitude, which in a way it never left. And then finally, God itself, the great super universal deity, is reabsorbed into utterness. And then, of course, I joke and I say, and utterness is pointless. Absoluteness is pointless. See what I mean? No division. If you've got points, you've got division. You cannot collapse utterness to a point, but you can collapse all of this variety to the ultimate point, and it's done periodically. Now, we're getting into the metaphysics of this, and I get a little bit afraid sometimes when we talk in these terms that it's just going to, leave us all in the dust here. But suffice it to say, you are permanent forever. Maybe that's the whole quest, You are permanent forever. And you are everybody else, and everybody else is you. And you are everything, and everything else is you. And what you are is indefinable, because to define you have to limit. So it's even beyond absolute infinity. What you are is beyond absolute infinity. In other words, you are an unarticulated utterness of being. I look for words, Why I look for strange words, because maybe it'll shake something here. I'll get it, I'll grok it, I'll get it. And where ordinary words might not pay off. See what I mean? So anyway, those are good perceptions, Joe. And here's Kim. So that's why we have meditation and Qigong, to bring us to a different state of consciousness. Yes. Uh-oh. Okay, it said my audio connection was cut off. And I hope that it's on now. Okay. to bring us to a different state of consciousness which is beyond mind, not reachable by mind. Mind is sort of the, it's so important, that we, students of causes, students of relativity, students of the universe, students of the planet, the solar system, we just sharpen the mind, really get your mind going. So you will have what DK calls, I think it's a great phrase, the acute energy of divine mental perception. Now think about that for a minute. It's one of the names of the third ray. The acute energy of divine mental perception. We've got to have that in the world of relativity. But the deepest experiences, I think, are occurring in a stratum which is beyond mind. Because mind will depend upon division, and there's got to be something identificatory, like the Christ could do, which is beyond any possibility of division. What's that, John, the verse, John 17, DK says there's never been a greater expression of what identification is than what Christ said in John 17. I and them, they and me, we and you and us, language is limiting, but he was living in this incredible infuception. The Christ was living that way. Now, who was he in Indian times? Because he was obviously a great Indian soul who had come to the West, to fulfill even more of his destiny as world savior. And he was called, I think he was feminine, and he was called Maitreyi. Not Maitreya, but Maitreyi. He was, he's called Lord Maitreya, but in this particular instance and in the conversations he was having then, Maitreyi, and he was deeply into Vedanta, deeply into the oneness exercises and the perception of the one. He had, fantastic training there, and then he moved on to things even more difficult, one day maybe we'll be in a position where we can understand the consciousness of the Christ. Right now, it's just beyond us. The depth of the love is just stop you in your tracks. It's just beyond what a human being such as we are can fathom. So anyway, we're changing our consciousness in various ways to do it, according to your ray, whether it's Qigong or different kinds of meditation or magic or magical words or whatever it is, there's a way in. There's a way in. Of course, ultimately there's no in or out. That's the amazing thing, and you say, well, space is forever, but if there's nothing else, how can you talk about extension? This goes on forever. Well, that would mean that there has to always be a boundary that is taken over by the expanding this. When you've got nothing else, you've eliminated space too, and you've eliminated time. You've been, Kim, using mantra for 20 years from Amma, but not allowed to, wait a second, or maybe to say what it is. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Sometimes we keep things to ourselves, and it's okay, if that's what you're meaning here. I've been training for 10 years with an enlightened Qigong master who has developed a system for realizing self-realization and enlightenment. And two students have reached this state, and he's an amazing teacher, and that's good. There are, many ways in. The Zen master might take his stick and hit you on the head, and a very Vulcan approach, and say, "Wow, this is what an enlightening experience. I stopped using the circuitous mind, and I really got something." There are many ways in. So Joe says here, to imagine anyone or thing is a practice in adjusting. Okay, I have to think about that. In adjusting one's vibratory knob, and to see those things rather than imagine them. What about that? Because in a way, if we were sensitive enough, we'd be able to adjust our vibratory knob all up and down the cosmic physical plane on every one of the 343 subplanes. Everyone would have a different vibration, and who knows whether we've got vibration operating on the cosmic astral, cosmic mental, and so forth. Who knows what is the smallest allowable particle in the entire universe? We have something we call the bubble in the koilon, and what, about 14 million of them? I forget whether it's million or billion, but 14, I'll say million of them make up one etheric atom. So these are the tiniest things we can think of, but I think they're divisible. And let's just say, if you're faced with the idea of something that can't be divided any more than it is, it's only because the deity of the universe, not above the universe, but the universe, decided that's it, no more. No more tininess, no more frequency. That's it. This is the smallest allowable perception by my will, says the deity of the universe to itself. I developed that idea in the infinitization book. Okay, if the absolute deity is one thing, then everything within it is also that. Yes. Yes. Yes, exactly. And ultimately, everything is the utterness, the one without a second. There's none other. And we're all that. And that's what they tried to tell us in Vedanta. Thou art that. Now, we usually think, just look at the world, Look at the people coming up. They're singers, they're dancers, they're doctors, they're lawyers, whatever, they are emerging into prominence in society, and they think that that's what they are. And you got to go through that, of course. But beyond isolated success of the limited perception that, that limits what you think you are, is what we're talking about here. Now, we've got to find a way to deal with that without losing our mind in the wrong way. You've got to lose your mind and keep your mind at the same time. You have to lose your mind as a limitation, but you've got to keep your mind in order to navigate the relative world. And we do have to navigate it, So we have from Joe here that being is all number, yes, and it's all number, and it's no number at the same time. Because it's not like we're looking inside this otherness and we're going to find infinite articulations of numbers. the otherness has to persist exactly as it is, and yet from it comes forth all number, which is essentially the zero, the absolute zero. Now we say here that being appears to have the quality of, right there, we're possibly in danger when we use the word quality with being. But let's just see. Being appears to have the quality of all, but with unlimited possibility. That's right. Yes, that's a good perception, Suzanne, because look, what I've said is that there's two ways. I mean, who's to make pronouncements about these levels? But anyway, you got to do what you can do. So there's a way in which the absolute deity, now I'm not talking about absoluteness now, I'm talking about that which appeared. The absolute deity sees itself as all, as utterly homogeneous, as utterly the same. That's where the first perception of unbounded sameness comes in. But the second way that great God or deity sees itself is as every possible thing already in existence, and that's the thing. It's already there. Every possibility that ever could be in absolute infinitude is worked out or exists before literally the all-seeing eye of the absolute deity. So unlimited possibility, which is actually actuality, it is. Quality is, in a sense, a defined essence, yes, albeit with the potential to change. Yes, it's a good definition there. Because it's essential in the structure of that which contains it. If I'm a human being, I've got maybe 7 or 10 principles. And each one of them is, in a way, an essence of what I am. But of course, other than those divisions, now, just read those 10 pages in Cosmic Fire right around page 259, and you'll see all the different ways that a human being is divided up into essences, like you're saying here. There are different ways of looking at it. But let's just say that these are essences, and yet the human being essentially is being itself. And that's what we have to keep in mind. Okay. Okay, yes, good old Vulcan is giving us, you say, thank you, Michael, for our visit with possibly Vulcan, who is obviously through these webinars honing our minds on the anvil with his hammer and chisel. He does not offer cosmic aspirin. No, I'm afraid if you've got one of those existential headaches, you may have to live with it. Okay, and Kim had to go. Right, okay. Okay, friends. Now, I can see that I've written out some questions here that it's going to take more than one time, because I like that very much. The group gets into it. The group asks questions or writes them down, or verbally or otherwise, about the question or the subject that I may be holding before us. And a lot of good things are being written and said. We have to have an understanding of this, and also what it isn't. It's so easy to misunderstand. And we also have to realize that whatever we think we understand, we're still in the realm of illusion. We're on the cosmic physical plane, and until the 9th initiation, we're going to be there. And maybe we'll come back for a little help, offering our help. But the illusion is inescapable. It's just a question of a more and more refined illusion. And actually, from the perspective that I have, the whole universe is an illusion when you consider the absolute reality which you really, really, really are. I know someone may say, well, okay, you're escaping reality when you say a thing like that, but I don't think so. Because I'm saying, look, you've got to handle the tininess of your life and the actuality in you and surrounding you, and you have to do a good job, which basically will mean that you're working in line with the universal archetype and all the descending archetypes that guide you. And that's good, and that's necessary. At the same time, what does the monad perceive? Really? So in a funny kind of way, we're getting into the question of monadic perception here. The highest part of ourselves, we call it the monad, but of course, it's really something we call the volatile essence, which is fire from the one flame, the one universal flame. So no body can contain the monad, not even the universe. Universe is a body. And one day that body, like all other temples, breaks, and we're liberated more and more into what we are, more and more into what we really are. Now, I'm trying to evoke my own abstract mind. And in the process, I'm trying to help evoke your abstract mind. And maybe it's already, wonderfully evoked and everything's going great, but the abstract mind, this is the thing right here. There it is. That's it. That's the monastic permanent atom, and it's on the highest sublevel of the mental plane, and the antikarana separates it from normal concrete thinking, even if that concrete thinking is very complex. So I'm trying to do what I can do to evoke this particular power in all of us. And I think what we're going to find is that particular power will lead to the emergence of these powers. Not fully, because you have to be, more than a master to get, to deal with what you might find on the highest level of the Buddhic or atomic plane. Those are the truly esoteric areas. The first two subplanes are esoteric, and in Buddhi, the first two subplanes are really esoteric. And unless we're more than a master, we're not going to find that. But, okay, we will find it. And from our abstract mind thinking about these far-out things, we will get more and more into intuition and straight knowledge, and more into the Buddhic mind, which is the mind of the law and the mind of the will, and we'll get more and more into will, wisdom, and activity, or active intelligence. But in the middle of that whole thing is something missing. It's called the volatile essence. Volatile means it flies. Volare, flying. It flies free. And so this thing breaks up, and the volatile essence flies into the sea of fire, only to find that it is contained by the Father, the Son, or the Holy Ghost. See, the whole universe is a temple. And that temple has to break also. Every temple, no matter what it gives you, the day must come, when it is seen as a limitation, just as the causal body is a limitation. It's very rich, and it's way beyond what we normally think, but it's still a limitation. And so is that temple of Ezekiel that we call the monadic body, on the monadic plane, and it breaks, and then you are a unit of fire. Tuya did such a fantastic job today showing the firebird, the phoenix. It was really inspiring. I just got knocked off my chair. And all of us are that firebird. We are the volatile essence, and we are learning how to fly free. If you have a chance to listen to today's broadcast on Makara or wherever else, maybe you'll find it on YouTube if they haven't knocked us off for some reason. It's really worth it. It's such beautiful music, too. Okay. Well, maybe that's, enough. Basically what I'm going to do is basically what we've done here is we've done one question. But it'll get easier to do as we go along. So this is the end of identify as being webinars. We'll have to work all this out about Yahoo seems to be going through some very big changes, and we have to find maybe some new ways of communicating, so the administration and staff are working together to try to help us do that. And today is what is today? Well, it's already the 13th. No, it's the 12th. So it's the 12th of November, 2019. And I don't know, Joe, do you know what I've said, program number, what is it? Is it?
I was just going to look it up on Makara. Give me a second. You've got two more comments.
Okay, I'll get to them.
Do those and I'll look up the number.
And then group program number 6, I think. But the program, I think it might be 10. I don't know. This one might.
I'll go look quick.
You find it.
Give me a second.
Okay. The volatile essence flies into the flame, into the sea of fire. I guess we're going to learn that we are fiery beings. We are fiery beings. We're going to learn that. And it's going to be, I think, quite a great discovery that we've been going through time after time after time. We are fiery beings, and fire itself is, what is fire? It's energy, and but it isn't. Isness is something more. Isness is something more than anything to which a particular quality can be attached. Yeah, so anyway, Joe, did you have something? Okay.
This is number 14.
You're kidding. Are we that far?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not kidding you. November last week was number 13.
Are you sure? Okay.
Well, I trust BL and her posting on Makara.
Okay, I'll just have to check it out as to what I've got, and then group program. This is probably because I did 4 solo programs, and I think this is the 6th group program, but or not. We'll check it out. Okay, we'll check it out. So thank you for searching for that. And there's a couple of things that remain to be looked at. Quality versus being. We are one versus I am all. Okay, Stephen. I'm pondering. So we are one, and we are no thing also. So the big question is the no thing one versus I am all? Yes, we are the articulated absolute infinitude. When I say articulated, I mean divided. Like in music, staccato, boop, boop, boop. You separate one note from another. Whereas if it's legato, one note is tied to another. So articulations are separations. And we are one, and we are every single possibility actualized before the mind or consciousness of the absolute deity. Now, when we go through our life here in our confinement, the soul is the quality of life. We've got to improve our quality all the time and raise our vibration by going through the initiatory process, and quality is always going to be rising as we do that. But it's only our perception of being that changes. Being doesn't change, but the degree of perception or infuception of being, that changes the sharper we get. And the more we're able to strip away these rings past knots that contribute to our mistaken identity. See, the whole problem here is we really are suffering from a bad case of mistaken identity. We think we're such a limited thing, and in fact, at the bottom of it all, we're just limitless, boundless. And it's such a big stretch between being limited, no matter how big you are, and being boundless. I mean, you could look for the very largest numbers you can think of, and it's still limited. And, boundlessness is something else. So anyway, yeah, we're thinking in these terms. And like Suzanne says, do we need the cosmic aspirin? Yeah, probably at times we're going to need cosmic aspirin. So the volatile essence flies into the flame as Mercury makes and what is it? Why am I not seeing this? Why can I not, when a person writes something down, I just can't see anymore?
I've been putting everything in the chat box, so.
Okay. Let me get there.
Mercury
I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
Makes the way over the sun. Well, it's a bit like Icarus, the myth of flying close to the sun. But the volatile essence, the fire, we are a, I don't know, are we a spark? Are we a fire in the original flame? Are we a flame in the original fire? Let's just say that some of our first feelings of being really, really unbounded in a very authentic way are going to take place in that sea of fire at the seventh initiation. But if we really look closely, we're going to find that the boundary is the Father, the Son, or the Holy Ghost. Still, the boundary is there. And if we really think clearly, however many trillions or quadrillions or nonillions, I used to like to study those lists of big numbers, of years it may take to complete an entire universe, both objectively and subjectively, it's still a bounded universe. It is a one. It's not a zero. A universe is a one, not a zero. So, the mind may do some funny things on our way to the kind of understanding we're trying to get. Thank you for the thought. Okay, Joe, am I free here before something else happens?
I think you have addressed all the questions and comments.
Okay. All right, friends. Well, that's about it. So, obviously, the next time it's going to be the 19th of November. And beginning. And we'll continue with these questions and with these exercises involving isness and beingness and removal of boundaries using the imagination. We'll try to do that, and we'll see what is the result. Joe, would you be so kind as to send me via email what's in the chat box? I would appreciate that if it were possible.
I will do my very best.
Thank you so much. I just want to take a look at it. Okay, friends, I'm glad you're here, and we're going to end closer to Earth. Why not, with the great invocation, because we can't really forget what we're doing in the world of relativity. Light, love, and power, and the making sacred of the earth, and the making sacred of each one of us. I think that when we become a fifth degree initiate, we are at last considered to be sacred. So it may be a while, but just hang in there, because fifth degree initiates are needed, he tells us. Okay. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you, everyone. Tomorrow morning doesn't give me much time, and maybe some of you, but at 6 a.m. We've got our Science of Triangles work. That's GMT, Science of Triangles. And we'll see where we are. We're looking basically at the way certain signs of the zodiac lead to different phases of the great developmental cycle that we all pass through. And then Tuya will be doing at, let's see, gosh, something is going on at 6 p.m., I think. She's going to do the sacred pentagram work at 7 GMT, so let's just see if at 6...
The triangle meditation, isn't it?
It would be if she does that. Sometimes when there's a period of a full moon, and we do a lot of full moon stuff, we don't do that. But, if you can, tune in 6 p.m., and we'll see what we have. So there might be 2, and there might only be 1. There will be, there will be a triangle, rather a sacred pentagram for sure at 7 p.m. GMT. And some of those are very, I think, very insightful. So thank you for being here. Lots of love from everybody, from the whole team. And we will, if we persist, we will achieve. So, we'll see you soon.